Welcome to our end of semester celebration for the Next Generation Service Learning Project. This project is unique as we consider service learning. We know service learning is a way to integrate meaningful service with instruction focused around before, during, and after reflection, but sometimes we only think about projects that include direct service, working with other members of the community. When in actuality, there are many different types of service learning activities, including direct service, indirect service, advocacy, and community-based research. This particular project for the Introduction to Professional Practices class focuses on advocacy, and that's part of our professional role as audiologists and speech-language pathologists. So this is an opportunity for students to practice lending their voices to make the public aware of the targeted issue, which in this case is the role of audiologists and speech-language pathologists. One of the important elements of service learning is approaching each experience with an asset-based lens. So that means that we are coming into the interaction recognizing that all members of the community who are engaged in service learning have values and assets to lend to the process. We want to be sure that we are truly working from a reciprocal lens where there is mutual benefit occurring throughout the project. For this particular project, we are focused again on increasing the awareness of speech-language pathology and audiology. This program was born out of several years of reading graduate program applications and recognizing that many students who move into a graduate program are really initiated to the field by early personal encounters with a speech-language pathologist, they themselves, or perhaps the experiences of a family member. Perhaps grandma had a stroke and was working with a speech-language pathologist, and that introduced them to the field. There are other fields of work that folks interact with on a daily basis, like medicine, law, teaching, and dentistry, but without an obvious pathway, speech-language pathology or audiology may not be on the radar of high school students who are starting to consider what their own career options might be. And this project offers the opportunity to introduce the professions to them for future consideration. This particular project is specifically designed to expose high school students who are starting, again, to consider their own career options to basic information about communication typical development as well as atypical development. So the role of speech-language pathologists and audiologists in supporting folks, as well as more information about where audiologists and speech-language pathologists might work. Each of our senior level university students designed a creative way to introduce this content knowledge to students within a high school setting. Many different classrooms were visited, many different contexts, and we're proud to share that 309 high school students were introduced to the professions of speech-language pathology and audiology through this project. The students' plans included, again, background information about the professions, as well as opportunities to dig a little bit deeper and get hands-on through some interactive activities. Our focus, of course, in service learning is not just the service, but making that direct connection between the lesson plan as well as our course content in the Introduction to Professional Practices class. Now that you know a little bit about the background of the project, I'm excited for you to hear from each of the students as they share about their experience and takeaways this semester.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie Markficka, and before I reflect on this service learning project, I just wanted to say how much of an opportunity it was to be able to present about our field to high school students and the professors in the classroom. To start off with how this project related to our class, the number one thing I chose to talk about was advocacy, advocating for people who do not have a voice. I mentioned to the students in the classroom about different organizations that UNO-NISLA, Collegiate Sertoma, our student organization, works with, and how they can get involved with people with disabilities. Moving on to the second thing that related to our class was AAC. At the end of the presentation, I had one girl state that she has a relative that uses AAC. And with us learning about AAC a few weeks ago, about unaided versus aided, I was able to help her see the benefits and how AAC helps her relative.
How is the Service Learning Project related to UNO's College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences goals for graduates? So, the goals for their graduates are being a dedicated practitioner, a reflective scholar, and a responsible citizen. The Service Learning Project did relate back to these goals. For example, I was able to talk about diversity and equality in the field or the lack thereof. I was able to communicate with other professionals, such as the school's SLP and the classroom teacher. This also goes along with being a responsible citizen and engaging equitably with everyone, regardless.
Um, I definitely value knowledge. As a younger student, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't realize that really knowledge is power. It really not quite to that extent, but I think you get the gist of it. It really gets you where you need to go in life, and just to never give up. It wasn't easy getting a position speaking for these students. I had to go to two different schools, and I got kind of shot down in a way, more dismissive for the first, and it just I was like, I'm gonna keep trying, and I found another school, and I ended up having a really good time speaking for those students. I I enjoyed encouraging the younger students to pursue their own goals at the age they are now, pursue a career. I definitely didn't start young enough. I pushed it off, and I'm glad I was able to kind of share my story with the kids as well.
For values, opinions, and beliefs, they're all factors that depend on each individual person. So originally, I assumed that the kids weren't going to care about my presentation and be a waste because high school students have that kind of stereotype. But my opinion towards high school students definitely changed, and I believe that they're a lot more kind and better people than we give them credit for sometimes. And I also now believe that all high school students should be given more opportunities to explore the possible occupations and options that they can pursue after high school. And then for values, I now value how much I was informed about this career path when I was in high school, because without it, I'm not sure where I would be.
I think my biggest challenge that came with this project was thinking of an activity that was interactive for the students and would help them engage with the material. Since I had decided that I was going to present in their anatomy class and explain some of the anatomy involved in speech production, I decided that I would have them practice feeling where their articulators went when they made speech sounds. So I had them make a few sounds like the TH sound, the L sound, and the B sound, and then feeling where their tongues and lips and jaws went when they made those sounds. I think the students really enjoyed these activities, and it helped them think about how the muscles and structures in our mouths and throats work together to create the sounds we know.
How have I been challenged by this project? This project was challenging in many ways. The first challenge that I had was finding a local connection here in town. I'm not originally from Nebraska, so I did not go to high school, making it a little bit more challenging for me to communicate with a fellow high school teacher that I've previously had. Instead, I had to reach out to someone brand new, but this was a new learning experience for me, and I did enjoy getting to connect with new individuals and individuals, especially professional SLPs in the area. I was also able to, another challenge that I had was working through my self-doubt. Throughout many projects, I often want to have a perfect presentation, and I overanalyze how other people will perceive my presentation. And through this project, I really tried to just focus on I gave 100% and not letting unknown judgments dictate how I perceive my project, as well as how I presented my project.
I had prepared a Jeopardy game with sections of phonetics, anatomy and physiology, audiology, the brain, and language to play. Each of these sections had information that I'd learned through my undergrad degree, and I really didn't expect them to know any of the answers, and I did let them know that. This portion of the presentation was merely meant to pique their interest in learning new things once they got to college. Little did I know that they would want to play the entire game, asking questions throughout. They were especially interested in place, manner, and voicing of speech sounds, and we ended up playing the entire game during my visit. I was so uplifted by the interest in learning new things that these students demonstrated.
I feel like informing the next generation about the field of communication and disorders about speech pathology was one thing I really learned and benefited from, because it was just nice to be able to, let the next generation know that, hey, this is a field that you should consider, and this is why. And this actually helped me to reaffirm why I joined this field in the first place, which I kind of already had talked about previously, but it helped me to remember, like, hey, this is why I did this project. This is why I have a passion for this field.
During this project, I got to learn a lot about who I am, whether that was remembering who I was or just like learning new things about myself. And something that I got to think a lot about during this project was my why for choosing this field, and I was very happy when I got to share that, and I got to remember that feeling of deciding that this was the field that I wanted to pursue, and that was an amazing experience that I got to do through this, or that this project gave me that experience.
To summarize what I've learned from the service learning visit is that sharing personal experience with students can provide them with opportunities to connect with material in ways that lecturing cannot, and that advocacy for the profession does not stop at the walls of our communication sciences and disorders practices. And finally, factors that will lead to success in our personal and professional lives include communication, time management and planning, and relationship building.
And what I think I did for the community side is educating a young generation, open their eyes to new careers. I educate. I give them like a new education. They like I educate them about something new maybe they don't know about. So this is what's maybe the most thing that I think that I gave them new information and maybe open their mind like to something new.
I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity. I think that I had a huge impact on my community by raising awareness for the fields of speech language pathology. I think that I learned a lot about myself, my ability to speak publicly, and also just how much knowledge I have gained throughout this semester in my Introduction to Professional Practices course. So I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to participate in a service learning project this semester.